Greetings, this is Obi-Wan Kenobi, and I have drifted into the Underworld. The Star Wars Underworld. I have a bad feeling about this.
Here we go. We must go to the lower levels. The Underworld.
You've taken your first step into a larger world.
You're after something.
Ben.
Since I've started the Underworld, I've met so many great friends.
Chris.
I grew up in the 1990s, and mall packaging is nostalgic for me.
Dominic.
What I love most about Star Wars is that it's fun and it's all-round good times.
So, this is where the fun begins.
May the Force be with us.
This thing really moves!
Whoa! I like this!
I can't believe you came all this way to see me.
Why am I not in the intro? I gotta come up with a snappy line.
What's up, Star Wars fans? Welcome back to the Star Wars Underworld podcast, your source for the latest breaking Star Wars news, reviews, and discussion each and every week. And this week on the show, we are going to be continuing our Star Wars Visions Volume 3 discussion, talking about episodes 5 through 9 of the third season. My name is Chris, and joining me on the show, it is Dominic J's 25.
Forgot I did that to the video. Yes, hello, Chris. Hello, Ben. Hello, everybody. It's good to be back. It's good to be back to talk some more about these Star Wars Visions episodes. I'm really interested to hear what everybody else thinks of them, because I think they're really, really good. But I also, there's some of them where I'm like, I don't feel qualified to talk about this. So I'm hoping other people are qualified to talk about it, because I don't know is the answer. I like it, but I don't know. So looking forward to getting into it. It's going to be a great show.
That was a very long way of saying Dan is not joining us this week. That makes sense. That makes perfect sense.
At least not yet.
Yes, we might need to have him phone a friend for some analysis of some of the meanings behind these episodes. Also joining us, it is Ben Solo, still flying solo.
Yeah, just it's me, still here, still in this box. How's it going, guys? Look, I think these are some of the best. I think this batch episodes I'm learning, since I actually have watched all of them through again since watching, since we discussed them last week. But I think this is some of the best and some of the weirdest Star Wars we've ever had. And I mean that in the nicest way possible. But that, if you haven't watched it yet, that last one hits you like, man. It's like, is this what I've never done drugs, but this must be what it feels like. Wow.
Yeah. My thoughts exactly on that one. And then finally to help us break down the animation, it is Blue Sky's resident Star Wars canon expert, Joel Davis.
Go Dodgers. Yep. That one Too soon.
Wow.
You were there, Chris. No, I'm excited to talk about this last batch of visions, and I mean, me and Din. If Din were here, I think I know what he would say about one of them, because I think the same thing a little bit. And yeah, I'll say that last one. The track is out for that one. If you want to listen to some jazzy music, on repeat, which we will talk about. And yes, Ben, I felt the same way.
Forgot about that.
So yeah, I'm excited to talk about Visions. I'm loving it.
Oh, I really didn't realize we're also talking about McDonald's. I'm excited.
I was gonna say,
Star Wars Visions.
Do you think how big would we have to be to get a McDonald's sponsorship? We tried so hard for the Oreo one, and it never came through.
I mean, it's only a little bit bigger than the Little Debbie sponsorship, so I think we have a chance.
I want to see that.
There's a deep cut for old school Star Wars podcast fan. Not even this show. You got to be like a Star Wars podcast listener from like a decade ago to even have a sense of what that was.
Exactly. I feel like a good amount of people.
I suspect they do. I
started listening to you guys before Force Awakens came out, but even then I feel like I missed something. I don't know.
Oh yeah, it had nothing to do with us. It was a whole last other show.
Okay.
We've never been sponsored by a snack company. We've barely been sponsored by anybody.
I will take any sponsorships. I will sell anything. I don't give me the paycheck.
Yeah, shill for whatever.
Exactly.
Let's plug some things, and then we'll dive right into the episodes this week.
Alrighty, make sure you punch that subscribe button. If you're not subbed to us, you can super chat on this show. Actually, make Joel answer a question for once instead of asking questions. That would be actually kind of fun. You can also become a channel member. You can leave a review if you're listening to us on a podcast app, and definitely check out our Discord. What's the next thing happening on Discord?
Game night this Friday at 6 p.m. Pacific, 9 p.m. Eastern. We're going to be playing Fortnite, and we're going to enjoy the realm of Springfield.
Oh yes, I've been seeing a lot of videos of that. That looks really fun.
Yep, it's fun to put on your K-pop Demon Hunter skins and go around Springfield with Chris Simpson.
Oh yes, that's hilarious. That's hilarious. So check that out. Link is in the description. Yes, all the things, and of course, check out all the other shows that we have on the network: the Raeside, Joel's Show, Eye On Canon, and Tales from Beyond the Galaxy, Tractor Babe, and more.
All right, let's pick up where we left things off last week with Star Wars Visions Volume 3. And yes, we will start with Episode 5, Yuko's Treasure, produced by Cinema Citrus Co. I will start how we always do. Go around the table, give some initial impressions. Ben, you won't go first every time, but you will for this one.
Yeah.
What'd you think of Yuko's Treasure?
Oh my gosh, this one might be one of my favorites of the entire series. Like, this one was just so delightful, and I didn't know what to expect. Obviously, there was the imagery. I'm just like, oh, there's this like delightful looking bear dude, and you don't know what his deal's about, and then just like getting into the episode, just like it's delightful. And then I went through all the emotions. Like, I went through like this, like, oh, what is this? What's going on? It's very intriguing. It is that kind of, unlike a lot of Visions, it's kind of set on Tatooine, which is kind of a more familiar location, using some familiar elements like the cantina, but then goes off in a completely different direction, and so much fun, and also heartwarming, and all the feels towards the end, which is just great. And also, freaking Steve Buscemi in Star Wars. Didn't expect that, but here we go. I like cameos in this back half.
How do you do, fellow younglings? Joel, what did you think of this one?
Ben, you took my best thing, Steve Buscemi in Star Wars. I love Steve Buscemi. Yes, there he is. There he is. We found him. The hunt's over, everybody. Go home. But no, this one was adorable. I got a little teary-eyed, especially with like Yuko and his relationship with Billy the droid. It was so cute and just so innocent and cuddly. Like, this is too precious, and like, oh no, Billy! I got so nervous for Billy at the end there. It's like, oh, adopted family at the end. You get another brother, and you get a starship. So it's like, well, I guess in Star Wars, the driving age is birth. I guess if you're sentient, you can drive a spaceship. You don't need to be 18 or older. But no, I thought it was adorable, very cartoony. It was probably one of the more cartoony anime ones, and probably the one that's also like the most standalone. And when I say standalone, I mean like this one. I don't need to be a series where like some of them I can see like that should be a series. That should be a series. I don't need this one to be a series. I mean, if they want to do like a cutesy anime Star Wars series, I'm all for it because I love all sorts of anime genres. But this one was the most standalone out of all of them. And yeah, it was adorable.
Chris, what'd you think?
I love the moment when like the robot bear is making some food, and then he takes the food out of his belly.
Yeah.
And you realize he has an oven in his belly. Like,
that's pretty great.
I was not expecting that to happen. That was really funny. It reminds me of kind of the Teletubbies with the televisions in their bellies. This was kind of the most Studio Ghibli-esque of the shorts this season, specifically with the bear droid reminding me of Totoro from My Neighbor Totoro. There were very kind of similar vibes there to that story and that character. So yeah, I agree with Joel. It was definitely one of the more kind of cartoonish ones, but I really like that. And the season has had a good mixture of different tones, and I'm glad we had one of this tone. That was great.
Yeah, we sometimes talk about like introduction points for kids with Star Wars. I feel like this episode could almost be one of those. Like, it's maybe a touch more advanced than Young Jedi Adventures, but it's not quite as heavy as the Clone Wars or even Rebels. It's just there. It's good. It's nice. I agree with what you guys have said about it being emotional. I was watching this and going, how dare you for putting me I've been on the verge of tears all week, and you're going to do this to me again. You're going to give me this cutesy story where a kid almost loses his giant robot teddy bear. But yeah, it was wonderfully told. Some nice little twists and turns to it. And Joel, you hit on it. It's the found family motif coming right back into Star Wars in a big, meaningful way. I thought it was really, really good. Anywhere else we want to go with this one? Any sort of
Sadly, this was the one that I watched last week. So it's been a full 7 days since I watched it. So I don't remember as many details as I would like. I remember really liking it, but I don't remember much about it other than the bear taking the food out of its stomach. And then I think the bear was very, very like protecting and nice and willing to sacrifice itself. And that's all I remember.
Yeah.
I'll add, and this one's kind of not as a deep one, and that's fine. They don't all have to be. I think that's kind of the point. I think this one was nice in just having the most familiar locations. I mean, was set on Tatooine. We see all the Tatooine aliens. I think we see a crate dragon. Is that the monster in the cave?
Yeah.
I think that was the crate dragon from Mandalorian. And it's very cute. You're talking about like a good introduction. I think I agree because like Young Jedi Adventures, you never expect anyone to die in that show. Like maybe there's some fights, but like with just throwing little fruit at people, kids throwing fruit at each other. Where it's like Steve Buscemi. I think Steve Buscemi's character is like what brings that kind of danger and darkness, where everyone's kind of like silly and cute. Even like the minions are like weird and funny. Steve Buscemi's like the straight man dog creature who's like, oh no, you don't want to mess with this guy. He's gonna kill you. Even though sometimes funny things happen to him too. In what is otherwise a very cutesy, very standalone short. But I liked it.
Yeah. Does it feel this is less to do with this episode in particular, but it sort of builds off of the fact that it is set in very familiar locations. Does it feel like this season an effort was made to perhaps include some things, some of the more classic, familiar Star Wars elements? I felt like Volume 1, and this isn't a criticism of it, this is an observation. I felt like Volume 1 felt very different. There was only like one or two. There's only one story that really felt like it went to familiar locations, and that was the rock opera. And then the other ones would occasionally have things that were familiar but really turned on their heads. Here, this episode we have Tatooine. It's very much a Tatooine story. The next one that we'll talk about, we go to Yavin. The rebellion is much. I think so.
I
at the end,
watched it. I remember.
I also thought that as well.
Oh yeah. That was Yavin. You're right.
Okay.
Yeah, at the end, we have the rebellion and the Empire very present in this, in a way that I don't think they were in Volume 1. I wonder if this is just like just the way things go, or if there was maybe that was a note that came from Lucasfilm of like, okay, maybe we should have things that reflect a broader picture of the Star Wars galaxy that we're familiar with already, in addition to things like the Duel and the Ninth Jedi and what's this one that we're going to talk about in a minute, the Birds of Paradise, that go off the board, bonkers out there in the best possible ways.
Yeah, I was talking to Matthew about this on the show last week. Talk about like Visions and its groundedness in Star Wars or lack thereof at times. Especially with things like the duel, where it's like, is this even the same universe? Like, yeah, we see things that look familiar, but like, our Jedi are what they're supposed to be in what we're used to them. Like, I don't know. And then Ninth Jedi is like, they say it's like 1,000 years after Rise of Skywalker, but does that really matter? Probably not. But with this one, it's like, in the next couple, we see like we get Order 66 mentions, like how people view the Jedi after Order 66, very, very familiar things. And I like that. I honestly, this is my maybe hot take. As much as I do love the fact that Visions doesn't always have iconography, kind of breaks it for the artistic sense, of course. It would be cool to kind of do maybe like overly artsy Star Wars animation, like some of the couple ones we're gonna see in the future, but also like get Darth Vader in there or Luke Skywalker, but then have them be weird and esoteric drawn and stuff, or the Emperor, like kind of the artsy but with familiar characters, where we kind of have not familiar characters and the artsy, for lack of a better term, because I'm kind of crude in that way. But I think it'd be interesting, like The Rock, which had chibi Boba Fett, played by Tamara Morrison, which was adorable.
Yeah. It's just not. Ben, Chris, any thoughts on that?
I always kind of assume that it just comes down to the individual like writers and what their preferences are, and it's a very small sample size, but there was just probably a little bit more preference towards referencing things. I mean, we kind of felt that vibe as well at the beginning of the season of, oh wow, all these episodes have like really strong droid characters, but then that kind of dissipated towards the end of the season. Yeah. So maybe it wasn't like a direction like, oh, all your stories must include a droid character. It's more like, well, there just happened to be a lot of people wanting to write about droids this season, and that's just how it happened. So I'm assuming it's the same way. I don't feel like, especially given the last episode, I don't really think that there was any specific direction. I think they were just told, just make it animated short. Here's a budget. Do whatever you want. That's
just
what I think.
Awesome.
Yeah, just make it good. Make it fast and intense, and that's all you need.
It feels like there's definitely like some themes that are running through this season, and some recurring like things of just like, there's a lot of droids, a lot of really cool droids. It's not recurring enough to say that like, I think that they were given a directive on like what you should do, because I think if there was a directive, like we would see it in every episode, and not every episode is the same. Like this is like the most wildly different episodes we've had in one season of Vision so far. So I think if anything, they were just given probably ample creative freedom, maybe just some studios, they may have.
If only we had an anime version of this.
Ben Hart, the Star Wars guy.
Yes.
Ben Hart, the Star Wars guy.
Star Wars rules.
This is momentous. This is exciting. Why, hello there, Ben.
Ben Hart, the Star Wars guy.
He is the founder of the Star Wars Underworld, Mr. Ben Hart.
How's it going, everybody?
Man.
Sorry, Ben, you crapped out on us.
Am I here? Did I arrive?
You are now. You have returned.
Okay.
Somehow Ben Hart returned.
It does actually. What was I saying? Oh, yeah, themes and just general, like I think there was some parallel thoughts, and I think maybe some studios just like came back and were like, hey, instead of doing something wild and crazy and out there, maybe we want to do something a little more closer to the vest, a little more closer to home. We want to do, instead of just creating our own planet, we want to do it on Tatooine, which I think is perfectly valid.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, no, I agree. I didn't think there was a directive necessarily. I just thought it was interesting that we kind of circled back to more familiar stuff in Star Wars in a way that we didn't in the first volume, because the second volume was very interesting about that. And again, I think it's reflective of the studios is the Empire was so much more present in that volume. And you look at the countries that were making volume 2, and it made a whole lot of sense. And so I think it, as you guys have said, it comes down to the individual studios, and it just sort of works out nicely that we pick up on some familiar themes in these stories. So we'll move on. I see why I confused you, Joel, when I said Yavin, when I said the next one, because I was actually thinking about the one after that.
Oh,
so we'll get to Yavin and the Smuggler in a minute, but let's now talk about The Lost Ones, another Cinema Citrus production. It's a follow-up sequel continuation of the story of The Village Bride from Volume 1. Joel, why don't you start us off on this one? What did you think of, what was this one called again? The Lost Ones. The Lost Ones.
Oh, I loved it. You know, this is why I watched the dub, because the main character, I think her name's F. Is it F? It's voiced by one of my favorite voice actresses, Karen Fukuhara. Voice of Glimmer and She-Ra and the Princess of Power and Kipo and the Wonder Beast on Netflix. Love her. She's also in The Boys. So that's why I watched the dub. But this was pretty good. This is a very, and like we were talking about, the very familiar in some way. This is a very classic post-Order 66 story.
Yeah.
In a lot of ways. You know, you got the Jedi on the run who still wants to be a Jedi, even though, you know, they can't really be that open about it. They obviously get into the refugee shuttle. It was kind of funny, like with all the kids coming to her, and then like one of the kids like, I heard the Jedi were bad guys, and I'm going to join the Empire, fight the bad guys. You know, it's really kind of funny, a dark irony kind of sense. And then, obviously, you know, dealing with a master who's we said they fell for the propaganda, and, you know, kind of blame the Jedi for the war instead of realizing, you know, they're kind of ironically working for the person who executed Order 66 now and went full dark side, and you know, the students got to defeat the master and all that stuff. Very classical Star Wars story in a lot of ways for a post-Order 66 Jedi, and I really liked it. I thought it was interesting, and this is another one where I can see maybe being a series one day.
I feel like this one is less of a series and more like we got one more short to go to get like the perfect trilogy of Village Bride, Lost Ones, and something else. Ben, what did you think of this one?
Let me preface what I'm about to say, and I'm going to say something controversial. Please at me. I don't want to say don't at me. Please at me. I don't care. It drives engagement. I don't care. I was never on the Village Bride hype train personally. It was not one of my favorites from the first season. Didn't hate it, never hated it. I always thought it was great. It was one of the better ones of season 1, but never was one of my favorites. I think I was definitely more on the Duel and the Ninth Jedi hype trains. But nevertheless, going into this one, I didn't have too much hype for this one going into it. But I think really interesting, really visually interesting. I didn't even realize it until after the fact, but you know, Mark Strong voicing the Master was pretty cool. It should have dawned on me such a deep, menacing voice had to be someone of note. That's how this goes, but really cool. I like that, just the whole concept of like, oh, there's carbonite freezing or something, and then people are like getting frozen in it, like taking over like a whole planet. Like, I really like that, and like that's just another thing of like Visions introducing something that I'm like, this could be canon, and I would very much like this to be canon because that's cool. That's a really interesting topic. And just like, you know, F as a character, she's really interesting, and she gets Anakin'd at the end. But yeah, really enjoyable one. I'm glad to see kind of the less like the Duel and the Ninth Jedi. I think were way better set up for sequels because like there's a lot going on there and whatever else, a lot of world building. We didn't know much about this world, you know, for Village Bride, other than just like what was going on that specific planet. But I think it's kind of blends itself to like more standalone stories. just about F and seeing where that goes from there. But yeah, I mean, I would very much like to see where she goes after this. But yeah, I enjoy this one.
Yeah, Chris, your thoughts on The Lost One?
I thought this one was interesting from an animation perspective. I liked the visuals. I thought it was pretty stunning, and I thought I really like the way that their hair is animated, how it's like translucent and like you can see through it. Like I thought that was really interesting, and I thought it was a very interesting choice to have the lines, like the green lines and the blonde hair. It was very, very interesting. And then you also had the master character with like the full like white hair, and his outfit was really cool. So yeah, I just really like the visual styles of this episode. I mean, the plot was interesting, the character stories were interesting, but for me, I think the biggest draw was just I thought it was very visually unique, as a lot of these episodes were, but that one particularly, I thought there were a lot of interesting animations of the characters and the environments they were in.
Yeah, what stood out to me with this one, and this is just sort of funny how our the way we're introduced to media sort of impacts the way we see something, even if that's not necessarily the line of succession. I'm going to explain what I mean here in a second, but I say this felt like a very Dave Filoni story to me, which makes sense because Dave was influenced by a lot of anime stuff. And so it's not like this story has anything that's like specifically Dave Filoni about it, but it's going to the source of Filoni's inspiration and like letting those people that inspired Dave tell a story. And unsurprisingly, that story then feels like something that Dave might have done because his inspiration was the people who made this one, and everything from just the way that F interacted with the refugees, the carbonite bombs or whatever those were, the little vials of stuff that felt like straight out of like Rebels season 2 sort of thing. Like it could absolutely see a scene where Hera's like, we've got to use this thing, and Ezra's like, what do you mean we got to use the carbonite? Like it felt like it so could have been a Rebels plot line, and then bringing it home with that really interesting confrontation between F and her master, this conversation about dark and light, and a lightsaber duel that was emotionally charged and thrilling, but without necessarily being a total stunt fest the way other ones are.
Right.
I thought it was really, really cool in that way, and it did. It's like suddenly I'm like, oh, okay, I see where Dave is coming from a lot of the time. Also, the wisdom that F passes along to the kids, A+, Star Wars wisdom. Nothing frustrates me more than bad Jedi wisdom because they try to make it sound too Jedi-y, and what they do, because good Jedi wisdom is just wisdom, full stop. And I thought that F did an excellent job there delivering passing that on to the next generation, to the youths of this weird little space refugee ship that was, had that one wannabe Imperial kid on it. It was good. It was really good.
I think it's interesting, as kind of looking at Star Wars and the inspirations of Star Wars, how this is one thing I'm so glad that maybe Star Wars fans who never cared for anime are maybe getting finally their true taste of unfiltered, authentic anime for the first time, of realizing, and this guy next to me, this Ben Solo guy next to me, of realizing that, a lot of the creators of Star Wars now, I mean, to be fair, I think George even just was to some extent, but I think, the younger ones like Dave and Leslie Headland and the younger you go, there's even some stuff in Rian Johnson and Abrams' Star Wars where I noticed it too. It's like there's a lot of anime inspired tropes being done here. A lot of anime inspired storytelling, visually, story wise, plot wise, and I think that we're going to see more of that because I think anime is very popular with young people. My age or younger. I'm 30, but go younger to the 20s, the Gen Zs. They love anime. It's what is the biggest stuff people are watching now? It's an anime, probably. The Chainsaw Man movie was the biggest movie this month. And I think as younger people hopefully get into Hollywood, make Star Wars, or even not even younger people, like people even Dave's age or younger, in that kind of older millennial age, you're going to start to see a lot more anime inspired tropes in your more live actions and even Western animation storytelling. It's already there, and other things. So I think it's a good reminder of like, oh, this is happening, and you're now time to look at where the source comes from. It's like, oh, that's why Rebels is like this sometimes, instead of like, why is Rebels like this? Oh, now I understand it.
Yeah, exactly. Any other thoughts on the Lost Ones? Gonna say
good.
No.
Good.
It's good. It's good. All right, let's move on to The Smuggler, produced by Trigger. Chris, start us off. Your thoughts on The Smuggler.
This was a fun one. The whole kind of story with like the prince, it kind of had this fantasy element to it. So I like that. This one was odd because with them going to Yavin at the end, it made me almost feel like this was actually canon. But then I'm like, wait a minute, but there's a Jedi where there shouldn't be any Jedi left, so clearly not. But like it was the most plausibly canon of like all of the episodes. Yeah, I thought it was fun. I mean, I loved the animation of the two main characters, the smuggler and the prince. Like I just absolutely love the art direction and their outfits, and they just had so much personality shown through what they were wearing and their hairstyles, and so I really thought that was artistic and very well done, and yeah, just a lot of really fun action in this episode. Really cool moments with using force powers, this one was wonderful. I really enjoyed it.
It's canon to me, damn it. I was gonna just include it in my. There's a few of these that I'm like, I'm just gonna count that one. Gonna count that one. Honestly, the Village Bride and the Lost Ones, they're canon to me. Same with Yuko's Treasure. They just unless it's something like The Duel and the Ninth Jedi, where like it can't really be canon, right? Or you got to go like way into the future, way into the past for it to. I'm just sure that happened. Yeah. Hell, Tatooine Rhapsody happened. There was a concert on Boonta Eve. We saw what Boonta Eve was like in Mando. You tell me there wasn't a rock show at the pod race arena.
Jizz music is canon, damn it.
Yeah.
I'm gonna stick with rock and roll. Ben, give us your thoughts on The Smuggler.
Yeah, no, I was actually really looking forward to this one because I mean it got a lot of publicity. Obviously, Emma Myers is playing the starring role. She's hot stuff now, been in a ton of things. So I was looking forward to that. But it also I loved it because it genuinely surprised me, I think, in regards to because I think early on there was, especially in season 1, there was always it seemed like all the studios kind of wanted to do their version of a Jedi or a Force story. Which I think if you're approaching Star Wars and you have one shot at doing a Star Wars story, I get it, guys. I get it. No, I'm not shaming anyone. I'm just saying, I'm just pointing something out. Whereas this season has been more kind of all over the place, and there hasn't always been Jedi or Sith or Force focus, which I think is why this is shaping up to be one of my favorite seasons of Vision so far. But I keep saying seasons. It's a volume. It's volume. Get it right. But like the lady like having a lightsaber like that tripped me out. Like I didn't see that coming at all. Even though it kind of was telegraphed, obviously. Like I think that's, and just like the fact that an old woman basically gets to be a Jedi. I think a lesser story would have just been like, oh, he's like a mysterious hooded man or something like that. It's like, no, it's just it's just a granny. this kid's grandma who happens to be a Jedi. And it's like, well, of course, this is supposed to be after the purge. Like Jedi are getting older. Like this is kind of like a female version of Obi-Wan Kenobi. I love that concept. And then just like the whole, oh yeah, she has a robotic hand and it, she has a lightsaber in it. Like cool. The whole concept is really cool. And then on top of that, having like this kind of rich history with this planet and they're rising up against the Empire and the smuggler. And yeah, it's just a really, really fun, cool story.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. Joel, your thoughts?
I hate to say this, but was I the only one who thought the elderly Jedi looked like Professor McGonagall from Harry Potter?
Oh yeah, I can see that.
I thought it was going to be played by Maggie Smith. That'd been epic. Yeah. Maggie Smith as a Jedi would be epic. So not gonna lie there.
Not wrong.
No, this was another good one. Again, I think Ben's right. This season or volume, I think has done a very interesting job of being a little bit more balanced than just all Jedi all the time, which I knew a couple people who didn't like Volume 1 because of that, but I think they were just kind of in a place where they were just sick of the Jedi at that point and kind of wanted some more non-Jedi and Star Wars storytelling, which I can understand to some extent. Even though Jedi are kind of the central thing of Star Wars, for better or worse, they just are. But I think that was nice. I couldn't help but laugh a little bit about at the beginning where it's like, this planet that believes in freedom and democracy, we, the royal bloodline of 1,000 years of the absolute monarch and the prince, was fight the tyranny of the empire. I always laugh at like, oh, Star Wars planet politics. The great defenders of democracy, the monarchy, all hail. Yeah. I just found it funny, but no, it was a very good episode. You were talking about how like Village Bride and stuff like could be like part 2 of a trilogy. Thinking about that, I think in terms of like, because I don't want to go into every one of these thinking that should be a series, just enjoy them. But I do think that, not that I think there should be like a qualification, but if you are to do series and expand on these, I think the ones that deserve it the most are kind of the ones again where the world building is just so out there and like the Duel where like, are the Jedi even the same thing? But what are Crusaders? And the Ninth Jedi, which is like 1,000 years in the future. I'd like to see a series of the twins because I like the twins, but that was just me. Even though that's a bit more like this could probably be post Rise of Skywalker, by the way they talk and stuff. Where it's like Village Bride, even the Bounty Hunter one to a lesser extent, but especially these two are kind of like. They're so grounded in Star Wars and kind of the traditional like Rebels, Empire. We know Order 66. Hey, remember like when she's like, hey, I thought the Jedi were the bad guys who like overthrew the Republic or trying to overthrow the Republic or something. Like if you were to do a series of those, I mean, I still enjoy them and it'd still be great, but I feel like that just kind of be like a canon Star Wars animated show with just not Clone Wars animation, which I would like because I think I'd love to see some more different animation styles with Star Wars animation with like. Why can't this just be canon? It's got all the tropes. It's got the world building. Whereas Ninth Jedi and the Duel are so out there and so not the Star Wars universe we're used to that it's like, yeah, expand on those. Let's see what that universe is like a little bit. So that would be my kind of like, I'd like to see a continuation of this as like a sequel, but maybe just like a trilogy then. A whole series, but yeah, again, a good one.
Yeah, I agree with that. Of all the ones, I think this one, I think really could have been a part of a series. As I was watching it, I was thinking this feels like it's part of a bigger story. I mean, which it is, but a bigger story that we are to see. And so, yeah, I do. I'm very glad that Ninth Jedi is getting a series, and I feel like it shouldn't be the only one. I feel like we should have multiple of these anime series going on because like some of these ideas are so good.
Yeah, I mean, something we haven't really drilled into on this show is the fact that we talk about the Ninth Jedi series, but the name of that show is Star Wars Visions Presents the Ninth Jedi, which strongly suggests that if there aren't specific concrete plans to do more, it's certainly something they would like to do. And if we go back to Star Wars Celebration, I remember James Waugh was very specific that like this is a banner that they intend to use going forward, and the Ninth Jedi just happens to be the first one. So we'll get the 6 episodes of that show, and hopefully that might lead to multiple seasons. It won't just be a mini series; it'll be multiple seasons. But that's me hoping, I should say. But I can't imagine that they don't have in their minds ideas for where all of these could be continued. Everything from the duel, which they obviously have invested a lot in already. I mean, it's kind of shocking. Like, let's be real. It's kind of shocking that that's not the first one getting a full series.
A book.
It got a book. It's got comics. It's got action figures.
Yeah, you're right.
It's kind of been front and center of the marketing for both Japanese seasons of Visions, far more so than the Ninth Jedi. I think the Ninth Jedi just, as we talked about last week, that twist was so good and so hard to not pick up on, to not want to go to that first. But just from an iconography standpoint, the duel is probably the most iconic of all. What are we at now? 27 Vision shorts. I think those two, the duel ones, are probably what most people have in their minds right away when they hear Star Wars Visions. But so the point I'm getting at is, Ninth Jedi is one, the first series. Let's just say it's likely that if there's a second series, it'll be the duel. After that, you open it up wide open. It could be anything. Maybe you pick something from volume 2. Maybe you say, like, we're going to do Screecher's Reach and do, a full series of what happens to that kid after he leaves with the Sith Lord. Maybe you pick up on this one. Like this one, this really does feel like there is a story here that, maybe it's just 6 episodes. Maybe unlike, what I'm saying with Ninth Jedi, I really hope we get multiple seasons of that. Maybe this story, you just need 6 episodes to talk about the liberation of this one particular planet. And maybe you say, and you know what? You can have this be a big announcement at Celebration. You get some story group person, be it James Waugh, be it somebody else, to go, you know what? This one's actually canon, and we'll all go crazy. Or you just keep it vague and leave it up to us to decide if you want to include this in your personal canon or not. As I said, until they tell me otherwise, I'm just rolling with all of these ones as canon. Yeah. We'll figure out how they fit in, and this one's pretty easy to make fit. That lightsaber in the hand thing is new, but it's not inconceivable. Lots of people have robot hands in Star Wars, and we've seen R2-D2 hide a lightsaber. Like, it can make it work.
Yeah, that's not why I would. Again, it's just the existence of a Jedi and Yavin that's weird. Like, the lightsaber in the hand. That's not strange.
Yeah. And the existence of a Jedi and Yavin. Well, she says, like, you can't tell anybody, and maybe you can't even tell Bail and Mon for some reason that we can come up that we'll find out in episode 4 of Star Wars Visions Presents The Smuggler.
Yeah,
but,
I was gonna say I would not be shocked if decisions have already been made way in advance. Like I always say, animation takes a long time. When Bad season 1 was coming out, they already had 2 and 3 probably in the works or done. So I would not be surprised if like maybe 1 or 2 more of these is already cooking. I want Lop and Ocho. Give me a continuation of that.
Those 2 were great.
Yeah.
Lop and Ocho.
And that story felt like it could continue. Like there's a lot of stories in here. I think
feel like
all of them. I think especially season 1, I feel like they were all like they were pulling a Zack Snyder. They were doing like, I'm gonna do this thing, but I'm gonna put a big cliffhanger at the end. or leave a big opening at the end for something to happen that then the studio is going to really want me, and the fans are really going to want me to continue this. And so I think La Pinocho is a good example of that. There's a lot of different ones that are like, it's satisfying on their own, but I think you want to see more, as you do with anything you like. But I think this lends itself to a continuing story, a lot of these.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. Any other thoughts on The Smuggler, or shall we move on? All right, moving on to The Bird of Paradise by Polygon Pictures.
And here's where it starts to get weird.
Here's where it starts to get weird. Ben, over to you. Initial impressions of The Bird of Paradise.
Yeah, no, this one was also very heavily advertised. I was very interested to see like how they would handle a more 3D animated. I mean, I'm not an expert on animation by any means, but it looked way more 3D, way more, I guess, for lack of a better term, Clone Wars Rebels than other ones do. Which, obviously it looked amazing, like visually stunning. I think it's very interesting. And just the slow reveal of, oh, okay, she was fighting herself at the beginning, and how much of this is real, how much of this is whatever else, and kind of someone's life flashing before their eyes, which is weirdly a theme in both of these last ones. Kind of crazy. But yeah, I think this one was really interesting, and they definitely saved the weird ones for last. And I like weird Star Wars. Okay, even when it's not my cup of tea, I like weird Star Wars.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, for sure. Joel, your thoughts?
I'm going to try and channel Din since he's not here. You didn't hear my thoughts. Yeah, it was like, talking about Clone Wars. By the end, I felt like I was watching the Yoda arc. Right, this is like. Except it's not a Jedi Master, it's a Padawan, kind of, deal with their inner darkness and fight their inner darkness quite literally. And much like Yoda at the end, they don't kill their darkness. They don't embrace it. I don't like using the word embrace, because I feel like it's more like they acknowledge it and they hug it out. They gotta they kind of just feel bad for their darkness. They give it a hug and realize, yeah, you're a part of me. I have to acknowledge you. I have to embrace you to some extent, I guess. And in order to do that, that makes me whole, as they kind of challenge themselves in their darkness without being able to see. And I really liked it. I mean, it was good animation. And George Takei voice appears. So if my friend Matthew, if you're listening, there's Star Trek reference. There's good old George Takei.
I was halfway through that. I was like, who is that voice? Who is that voice? I'm trying to figure it out. Then I realized, I heard George Takei on a podcast recently. I'm like, oh, it's George. It's what's his name? Sulu, it's Lot Durd.
Lot Durd.
Good old Lot Durd. The voice of Lot Durd is communicating with the Jedi. But it was very beautiful, very, very majestically drawn in that kind of 2D, 3D blend mix. And again, I just felt like I was watching the Yoda arc a little bit by the end there. So that was my big takeaway from this episode.
Mm-hmm. Chris, your thoughts?
So lots of strange connections for me in this episode. But broadly, this was very interesting because a lot of the episodes we've seen this season have taken place, have had a kind of a pretty large scale to the plots and the environments, and lots of characters have been involved in lots of different locations and such, either on one planet or multiple planets and space and spaceships and all these things. So it's very interesting that this episode, takes place just in kind of very small area, and it has very, very few characters. And in fact, many of the characters are just one character, as we talked about. It's pretty much all just those two actors. So it's interesting contrast there, and it's interesting that the story is more mystical and about the inner journey than just kind of plot, and it's very allegorical in its depictions of what it's showing, and then that kind of opens the door for a lot of the energy to go into the visuals. I think that not just like it was interesting that the animation was more 3D. That for me, that wasn't like the draw of the episode. I just think that just what was animated was so cool. Like I think kind of the contrast between kind of like an overworld and like this underworld as like she can't see and she's touching things and then they're kind of appearing in this ethereal way to her. I thought that was kind of really interesting how that was animated. So from a visual perspective, this is interesting. I also feel like it was kind of cool because the art direction for what she was wearing and the way that she was styled, the main character was styled, had a very kind of like almost like a geisha, like old school Japanese like style to it, which I thought was very, very interesting to see that, since we've seen a lot of like modern Japanese sci-fi. So it was cool to see kind of more ancient styles, kind of similar to how we saw like samurai-esque things in the dual pair of episodes. So I thought that was very interesting. And then moving on to the connections, we had talked about it last week, how this episode was called Bird of Paradise, and we're talking about how myself and Joel have a lot of flowers where we live that are literally that flower, and they actually showed the Bird of Paradise flower in the episode, which was really cool. And then she has the Bird of Paradise also is like an earring, which I thought was really cool as jewelry. So it was really cool how that kind of symbol was throughout the episode. So that was really, really fascinating connection. And then the actors in the English version, it's so interesting. I knew it was George. I actually wasn't letting myself believe that it was George Takei. I'm like, this has to be, just like I felt like I was hearing Arnold Schwarzenegger in a previous episode. I'm like, someone has to be like doing an impression of George Takei, but it's not George Takei. It's someone doing an impression of George Takei. And then I look it up, and indeed at the credits, it is actually George Takei. I'm like, well, that makes sense because that sounded like it. And then I found it was very interesting that it was Sonoya Mizuno doing the other characters, because we had just talked about this episode last week coming up, and then I'm watching the episode, the Netflix series Maniac, because after watching Begonia, I'm like, I need to see something else with Emma Stone in it, because I've seen almost everything with Emma Stone. What have I not seen with Emma Stone in it? Oh, she's done some TV series on Netflix. Okay, I'm gonna go watch that. So I'm watching that, and I'm interested because Sonoya is like looks extremely different, and like the character she plays in that show is extremely different than a lot of other characters she's played. And I didn't even think it was like, I didn't realize it was her until I looked it up, and I'm like, wait, that's the same person from the Oscar Isaac and what's his name? Mr. Hux's
Donald Gleason,
Ex Machina. So I'm like, that's wow. I'm like, they don't even look like the same person, but that's the same person. That's crazy. So I'm looking that up, and so I'm like comparing this, I see upcoming credit for Star Wars Visions Volume 3 Bird of Paradise, and I'm like, that's crazy. That's wild. That like I'm like looking this up because of something else, and then she's like in that episode. So that was pretty wild. So she obviously has a lot of range. So it makes sense that they would pick her to voice a dual character like that, because she has a lot of range in her acting with the characters that she's played. Very interesting. So yeah, really, really carried by George and Sonoya, and then visually very, very cool animation, very mystical, fantastical animation that I really, really liked. So fun episode. Plot very different cup of tea than the rest of Visions, but I thought it was really cool to watch and really, really stimulating to watch.
Yeah, I'm with you. This is the one I wish I'd watched more than once, because I feel like I didn't quite get to dive into it as deeply as I feel it merits, given what it's trying to do and what it's doing. Yeah, I didn't watch these episodes. This was very rare for me where I don't watch a Star Wars thing right away. I didn't watch these until about a couple hours ago, right before we did the show. So I didn't quite get to didn't quite get to do my usual double viewing of these things before talking about them. So I didn't quite sink my teeth into this one the way it would. I really liked the structure of it. I liked the title cards with the little pieces of wisdom on it. I felt like that gave it an interesting flow. And the only other sort of observation I have about it is it's like the whole thing took place in the cave on Dagobah kind of feeling. Like it's that sort of like part of the journey to becoming a true Jedi. So yeah, really good stuff. Really looking forward to revisiting this one again down the line. Any other thoughts on the Bird of Paradise here? All right.
Just visually stunning.
Visually stunning. Agreed. Finally, we end with Black by David Production. I again don't know what this was, but I loved it. It was great. It was fantastic. Ben, start us off. What did you think? What did you think of this one?
Yeah, I think we're in the same boat of like this is abstract art. Like this is the first instance I think of Star Wars truly treading into territory like abstract art that we've never seen before. And truly just mind-bending, like absolutely insanity, but also you weirdly get it. You weirdly kind of understand what they're trying to say. And it's like a stormtrooper's dying and his life is flashing before his eyes and all these things are happening at once. And maybe it's a second Death Star exploding and, we're seeing things maybe not in order. I mean, it's completely open to interpretation. I don't think there's a take on this that is bad. I think obviously if this is not for you, it's not for you. And I'm not saying this is my favorite Star Wars thing ever, but I appreciate the fact that they just went all out with this. And I mean, again, one they kept talking about it. They were screening it for people. There was talk about it. They were really pushing this one called Black, and we saw some screenshots, which did not do it justice. Those first screenshots they showed of it, and just absolutely insane. And I weirdly loved every minute of it because it was just like you're just letting this thing happen, let it wash over you. And I really do need to watch it again. I'm in the same boat. I've kind of only seen these once all the way through, most of them, but truly. Like, I think a momentous moment in Star Wars, just the fact of this is something we've never seen before and may never see again.
Yeah, it's true. I don't know who else is going to do something like this. This one, who knows how much Star Wars George watches. I feel like if somebody showed him this one, he'd be like, yeah, that's the stuff. It feels like right up his weird alley. Joel, give us your thoughts on Black.
Now you guys know how I feel every time I watch the ending of Evangelion by Hideki Anno, where I'm like, I have no idea what's going on, but I'm sure this is really smart and deep, and I'm just not smart enough to understand any of this. Although I get that even had more of a plot than this. But no, this was great. I had no idea what was going on half the time. It was beautiful to watch, and I love the music when it gets to that jazzy part by the end. I'm like, oh, I'm rocking to this. I'm rocking to this jazzy tune as everyone dies around us. But no, it's like this is a trip, man. I'm not gonna say what kind of trip for YouTube certain, but it's a trip of the sorts. And I have this is the kind of thing where I don't know what to say. It's good. I don't know what happened, but I feel like my brain changed a little bit while watching it.
Chris, give us your take.
So what's cool about this is many times, all inclusive of Star Wars animation, we give praise for them going into different genres. And Vision certainly has gone into different genres. There's a lot of different genres, and and the Clone Wars anthology. That was very exciting to watch. And what was cool about this is that this was another exploration of genre, going into a genre that I haven't really gone into yet, which is surrealism. This was the surrealism genre. This is the, no, there's not a stable reality. You're just seeing what you're seeing type genre. And that, it's very reminiscent, as was mentioned, of like a mental trip that you might go on for various reasons, or a near-death experience, or as most likely this is inspired by a death experience. I definitely agree that it does feel like this is kind of a commentary on what a stormtrooper on one of the Death Stars might experience as the thing's blowing up. That makes sense contextually by what some of the visuals that do make sense that we see, that we are familiar to us. And then everything else is just kind of from the perspective, I think, of that character and what they're experiencing. And yeah, it's extremely, extremely surreal. The jazz was interesting. The art was really unique and interesting. I agree. I think George does remind me of the tone poems that he would do when he was college age. So really, really interesting. I'm glad it was only 13 minutes. When it started, I saw the length of the episode. I'm like, that's weird. All the other ones were like 20 minutes. This one's only 13. I wonder why. And then as it starts, I'm like, oh, I'm glad that this is not 20 minutes, because I don't know if I could sit through this if it was 20 minutes, because you're just so confused the whole time trying to grasp what's going on. It's hard to keep focus on. But I think 13 is good. It's enough to kind of give you enough of stimulation without your brain starting to melt like the character's brain is melting literally in the episode. So yeah, very, very interesting. The most exciting thing to me about this is that this was made, like that they let this get made, like, because that means that the amount of creative freedom that they're given to these studios is very maximal, very maximal. And so that means, one, that everything that we've seen, it kind of underscores my theory that they just made what they want to make. It's not like they're given a specific direction. Oh, it has to look like this, this or that. Like, I think everybody's making what their vision is of Star Wars. I think that's the point of the title Visions, is their vision of Star Wars. And funnily enough, I think this episode was clearly the most visionary of the Visions episodes. Like, when they first announced what Star Wars Visions would be, this is kind of what I thought we would be getting more of, because I'm thinking of the Visionaries art book and how there's a lot of surreal art in that. And so I was thinking we're going to see a lot of surreal, very impressionistic like animation. And I'm actually kind of surprised that we haven't had more episodes that are kind of like this. I feel like there's been a few with really impressionistic art, like I definitely think that the dual pair of episodes for sure, with the black and white, and then the only the glowing things having color, and then this episode. But I'm curious now, as we move into future seasons of Visions Volume 4, 5, 6, and beyond, how many more things like this we'll get, because I think that's really cool. That's really cool, because while some of them, of course, are not going to be the type of thing where you'd want to experience again, you're eventually going to hit one that resonates with you if they keep being so off the wall like this. Eventually, they're going to get to one that, like, I'm sure a lot of people, for the people that this did resonate with, it's going to be like their favorite thing, because it's just so specific to an experience. So I think that there should definitely be enough range in these episodes that there are some that, just a select group of people are like, oh my gosh, I can't believe they did that. This is so cool. So huge props to this as an idea and as a out of your verse reality. Not something that, again, made me incredibly emotional watching it, but I'm glad that it exists.
Yeah, same. What's interesting, one of the interesting things about Visions to me is that they the way they end every season, because they always end on kind of a weird one, right? Like they don't go out with necessarily the one that we're all going to remember, right? Like if they had ended with, you know, a Ninth Jedi or you know, the Lost Ones, the Smuggler, or anything like that, you just kind of go, okay, yeah, you know, end on a high note, end on, you know, something that's sort of familiar and exciting and gives you the kind of classic Star Wars feeling. But every season they end with something kind of odd, something kind of strange. With season 1, it was Akakiri, and like, you know, some folks in the chat saying they couldn't finish this one. That was my experience with that one. Like I had to really force myself to get through that episode, because like I was really struggling to stay engaged, really struggling to stay interested, struggling to stay awake, quite frankly. And then, you know, volume 2, it's, you know, Our Song is maybe a little less weird. I certainly like that one better. It certainly resonated with me, but it's one of the weirder ones of that season. And then this one is just bonkers off the wall, just going straight for the visuals, not really worrying about a story. Like there's a little bit of a story if you need something to glom onto. Like you said, Chris, you know, we can kind of assume this is the perspective or the emotional experience of a stormtrooper in their final moments as a Death Star explodes around them. But it's just weird and it's glorious in its weirdness. Even the soundtrack is bonkers, right? That's not the soundtrack you expect for those visuals, but it's that way. It's kind of, you know, it's not conforming to any of our rules. And so it's almost like with every season of Visions, they kind of end on a note of, you know, this is not your regular Star Wars. We're not trying to give you the typical Star Wars conclusion. We're just trying to leave you with something that makes you feel different. We're trying to leave you with something that isn't necessarily that satisfying conclusion that you might expect. Why that is, I don't know. But it is interesting to me that that's where they choose. That's how they choose to end these seasons, on kind of an odder, funkier note. But in a way that feels right for what this show is. You know, the show is about experimentation. It's about trying new things. It's about hearing different voices and seeing what kind of stories we get. And it's 27 short films. That's what this is. Calling it a series is kind of a misnomer. It's 27 shorts, and watch 27 movies. Are you gonna love all 27 of them? Probably not. You just, you know, there's going to be ones that even if you kind of like all of them, there's going to be ones that you really, really like. And there's going to be other ones where you're like, less so. So that's what this show is. That's what this experience is. And it's almost feels like each season ends on a note that's meant to underscore that more than anything else, more than having any sort of profound wrap up to the season.
Yeah,
I agree.
I think it's interesting because, you know, so talking about the music and the visuals and how it seems like it doesn't fit. Like, I think, again, the rules for constructing this episode are different than the rules that Star Wars usually goes by. Like, Star Wars typically is about motif, and that's literally it. It's about motif. It's about, you have things that recur in the music that rhyme, and then you have story elements and visuals that also recur and rhyme. So it's a very, you know, classical motif, you know, roots of, you know, modern pop and rock type opera. It's a rock opera, and so a rock space opera. So you just see that everywhere. And this episode is, you're hearing jazz because jazz is not based on motif. Like, jazz is a scale with improvisation put onto it. And so thus the visuals that you're seeing are also improvisational. It's not like you keep going back to the same themes over and over again, rhyming and cementing the idea more strongly and having your emotions repeat themselves and build on themselves. It's more like this is improvisation. You're just going to see where this goes. You're along for the ride. There's still, a common scale that it's on. Like the visual art style is the same. The way that it's sweeping from one scene to the other is in this fluid way that is the same. There's this one character that experiences all of this throughout the whole thing. But everything else just seems improvised. It just seems as if you're, imagining, what comes next, and just whatever comes to your head and your imagination, that's what you see. And so it's very jazz oriented, and it makes sense to me that this would be the last episode because it reminds me of a lot of great rock albums that just are very, typical thematic, melodic like music with, your recurring choruses and verses and bridges and things. And it's just, you expect it. And then the last song is just like breaks all the rules. And you're like, well, why? It's the last song because it wouldn't really make sense to break all the rules and then bring the rules back. And I think if you had this episode somewhere in the middle of the volume, it would be very strange because you'd have a few things happening. One, you'd kind of go on this trip and it elevate you to this other style, and then go back into the more motif-like Star Wars after that would just be kind of really jarring. Because it's taking you out of it, and then it's weird to go back into it after. And then I think a lot of people too would just stop watching because if they didn't like it, they wouldn't finish the volume. I can imagine because they might think the rest of it's like that. So I get how it's like, okay, for people who don't want to watch this type of stuff, you put it at the end, so you only the people that really want to see it, stay for that. But yeah, it reminds me of like what in general is like one of the most popular appeal rock albums from the 2010s, the 2013 self-titled Paramore album that spawned lots of top 40 radio hits like Ain't It Fun and Still Into You. But if you actually listen to the album at the end, it ends with a 7+ minute song called Future that has very little lyrics in it. And it's just them kind of rocking out with the guitars. And there's just a full, very slow fade out and then a slow fade back in. And then it just keeps going. It goes from like rock music to silence to you think it's over to, oh, wait, it's back. Like, it just makes no sense. It doesn't fit stylistically with like anything from the rest of the album or anything that band has ever made before or after. And yet it's just there. And I think that the way that this volume of Visions is structured reminds me a lot of that album, where it's like there's so many great, popular Star Wars motif like moments with Jedi and the Force and John Williams-esque music, and then you just end with this thing that just is completely different. It reminds me a lot of that album, how it ends, and I think it kind of shows again that it's this more artistic, musical like view as opposed to a very plot, story, dialogue like view of what visual storytelling is, which I think is very, very interesting.
Yeah, absolutely. Any final thoughts on volume 3 of Visions as a whole, now that we've discussed all 9 episodes? Any sort of concluding impressions of this 3rd volume? Throw it out. Anybody who wants to take this can go.
I was just gonna say, if they I think I said this earlier, let's say it again. If they ever do a story, because all the stories of Visions are about new characters, but if they ever do a story like that sounds like a typical Star Wars plot, like Darth Vader hunts a Jedi during Order 66. I need it to be like the weird one at the end, like Black, or because I feel like that's how you could do it for me, where it's like, okay, here's Darth Vader, the Vader story. We see it, we see those every day. But it's going to be like the most surrealist, artsy, just bonkers thing ever. and the one thing you only recognize is, oh, there's Darth Vader. So that's that part there. As for Visions Volume 3 on the whole, I hope this keeps going. I beg to the Lucas gods that this keeps going, because this is so good. And I think they're really honing in their skills. I think now that we kind of have a couple under our belt, the Jedi centrism of it all kind of goes away. They're willing to explore smugglers and mostly bounty hunters in the underworld and cute little kids with their teddy bear robots that you just want to protect with all your life. Do not harm Billy or suffer the consequences. And I hope as it goes on, we get other weirder ones that maybe build new universes and obviously set up for new shows. And it does seem like the Visions brand and the Visions Present brand is getting bigger and bigger and bigger. So keep the train rolling. I love anime.
Absolutely.
Yeah, it is interesting how, just from a purely like pop culture like perspective, it feels like Visions is still not a very big thing. Like even online in fandom, I'm like, looking at social stuff like that. It feels like not many people were talking about Visions, like things like the kind of like Visions obviously came along right after the Ben Solo thing, because like a lot of people were talking about that, and then like things are going to kind of just die down. And obviously, like it feels like I would be like shocked if somebody came up to me in real life and was like, "Have you watched Visions?" I would, because like it just feels like so under the radar. But it's clear that it is popular to at least some extent, and that Lucasfilm and Disney see value in it, that they keep expanding it. And I guess maybe there's been discussions about like certain series and also just like animation as a whole, what is Disney's view on animation, not just from Star Wars but just in general. But it feels like they're continuing to invest in this thing, and then I enjoyed Visions Volume 3 the most out of all the Visions we've gotten so far. So I'm very much looking forward to seeing what's next. But even if I don't, I still appreciate that they're doing this. I still will always appreciate that, they're continuing to push this into new uncharted territory and do something different. I think this is when Star Wars is at its best, which is just doing things like Black, doing things where it's a bear droid, or it's whatever. Like it's just, there's so many new interesting ideas and stuff we've never seen before. I think this is when Star Wars shines.
Chris, your final thoughts on Volume 3?
Yeah, I agree. This is my favorite volume as well. And, I've only, like a lot of us have seen each of the episodes once so far, but everyone was really memorable. Like everyone had something in it that really stood out, that was really exceptional. There were none that I just watched and was like, okay, move on to the next one. Like all of them were interesting. And I couldn't say that about the last two seasons. There were at least a few of the sorts in the last ones that I did, you kind of gets lost in time and you just remember some of the more memorable ones. But these, I think, were all fantastic. And I think it's exciting that a couple of them were continuations of, actually more than a couple were continuations of ones from season one. I thought that was really cool as well. And probably one of the reasons why they were all so good, because you only had so many opportunities for new stories, because you already knew that 3 of them were going to be good because they were based on the best stories from volume 1. So that's probably contributes to that. So it's really exciting that there's improvement upon this, and it puts up some really high expectations for not just volume 4, which we hope is coming, but also any series that do spin off from this. Huge expectations for that.
Yeah,
certainly. Yeah, I had something I was going to say and I've forgotten it.
I'll add something while you think, Dominic, to give you time to think.
Go ahead.
To kind of query on Ben's thought. I wonder if this is a situation, Ben, with the discourse of like, I wonder if this is like, is it more popular in Japan, and the fact that we're just Westerners in America and Canada are like just kind of more divorced from that? Where like in Japan, this is making the big bucks for Lucasfilm, and this is why they keep doing it, because like that Japan money, and maybe it's just also the circles you're in compared to me, where like I'm in a lot of anime heavy circles, so this always gets discussed, whereas maybe in our other circles is like, let's face it. I always hate saying this, but it's true. I think in the West, especially in America, and just the West general, I still think real Star Wars, quote unquote, and I'm using quotes in the most sarcastic way possible, is still kind of live action, regardless. I don't agree with that, but I still think that is like real serious Star Wars. But maybe in Japan, Visions is the big thing.
Well, yeah, and I think, there's plenty of evidence. I'm almost practically come out and say that, like, Disney really wants to gain a foothold in the East. Like, they really want. There's a lot of people over there that just, in general, are not enthused by Western culture and Western movies like that. So they really want to get the foothold in that, and like maybe this is their way of just like introducing that, because we like their stuff.
Yeah,
we love anime. We love all the stuff. We're big consumers over here. But it just doesn't connect that way when you go the other side of the planet. And Disney wants to capitalize on that. And I don't know. I would be very curious to hear Japanese opinions on Star Wars Visions. How big is it over there?
Well, just speaking from experience and it's limited sample size because it is Star Wars Celebration. It was huge at Celebration Japan. There was a real presence of Star Wars Visions there in a way that, well, there was definitely Vision stuff at in Anaheim and London. It was much more prominent there. Both in an official and fan-made capacity. It was really a bigger draw. But that's actually, this is what I was gonna say is like what I like about Visions is that it feels less like a ploy for relevance now and more like an investment in the future. And this is a conversation I think we'll have a lot going forward, and that we've started to have with the Ben Solo stuff of, has Star Wars in its modern era, the last 10 years, how much has it done to invest in its own future while also capitalizing off of its past? Because it's done a very good job at capitalizing off of its past. But has it done a good job at investing in its own future? I would say no. I don't think it has. And the fact that a movie like The Hunt for Ben Solo doesn't get made is kind of a indicative of that. But a show like Visions is like, we're going to make stuff that is weird. We're going to make stuff that doesn't conform to the usual expectations of Star Wars. We're going to invite other people to the table to make this stuff. And maybe it won't be as super duper popular with the established central fandom, whatever that is, whatever that means. But this is the stuff that people are going to find who wouldn't immediately be drawn to Star Wars on its own, and might be their, first step into a larger world of Star Wars. And so that's what I like about these things. Whether it's the weird ass things that we get, or it's the more quote unquote normal ones, whatever it is, it's out there for people to find, for people to resonate with. And as we frequently say, every Star Wars is someone's first Star Wars, and it's somebody's favorite for Star Wars, and it brings them in, and that alone makes it worth it and makes it worth doing. So I love that Visions exists for that reasons, because it actually feels like it's like trying to make Star Wars appeal to a new audience instead of just begging the people that had an AT-AT to keep playing in the sandbox, begging us to, you liked your Boba Fett and your Yoda action figure. Well, what if we gave you a show where the two of them played together? How does that sound?
Mandalorian and Grogu still make $1 billion and prove you wrong. That's still what people want.
I mean, I'm not saying that's not what people want, and I'm not saying that people shouldn't want that. I'm not saying it, but you also need stuff that reaches out to a new audience. And there are things in the sequel trilogy that do that, but they're not trying to build on that in any way. And that's the whole Ben Solo conversation.
And there's a difference between like giving people what they want versus giving people something they didn't know they wanted. And I think I think a lot of Star Wars, and this is not a Mandalorian problem. This is a problem that's been this is a problem with many franchises. Franchises these days, studios, generally speaking, they want that money, and they see something popular, and they're like, let's remix this. And I think to a certain degree, I think to a very sincere degree, storytellers and movie executives, all that, they're trying to recreate that feeling for you. They know you had a certain feeling, you had an emotional reaction to something, whether it was 40 years ago, 50 years ago, or last year. They're going to try to recreate that for you again. And so they, in a way, rejumble all the pieces and put it back together in something that resembles the same product, but also does something different, because they know just doing the same thing over again, people will be like, what? This is the same thing over again. But, you know, as comes a certain point, you have to do something different. You have to do something remarkably. And that's the towing that line of just like doing your Mandalorian and Grogu, which we know it works, not just because it took elements from the original Star Wars trilogy, but also because it was a TV show. It was very popular. And yes, it could make $1 billion. I'm not saying it will, but it might. But
I don't think it will, but
leaving room for new stuff, completely new stories, new elements, new everything. And that's you want both. Really, I want both. I want them to be able to do both. And I think the people that are like kind of like either mum's the word on one or the other, I think there's a good balance there. I think we are striking that balance a lot. I think for all this crap Star Wars gets these days from various people, I think it is doing something right.
And I push back a little bit. I think it's not just creators trying to give you something with what they felt. I think it's just giving themselves. You know, we can say, Force Awakens was a executive mandated nostalgia trip. It probably was. I'm not going to say it wasn't. Oh, yeah. But I also think, you know what, J.J. Abrams, love him, hate him, he's an original trilogy guy. He's like, I don't care about them prequels. I grew up with Death Star. I want to do my trench run because I want to do my trench run. You can say it was how well it was executed, sure. But I do think that's a genuine place of like, I want to do my trench run. I want to do my at walkers. I want to do my Emperor, whatever. So I think sometimes nostalgia isn't just a marketing gimmick, although maybe with people like Bob Iger it is. But I do think with even the creators, it is like, no, I just want to do it because I want to do it. I want to do my version of it. So I think nostalgia is just sometimes a genuine thing. It's not just cynical money too.
Yeah, and we've had this discussion over and over again, so I'm not going to reiterate it. But like, sequels, obviously, Force Awakens especially, like doesn't get enough credit for like the new ideas that they're introduced, on top of the things it definitely like redoes and stuff. And it's frustrating. It's especially frustrating because like it has good ideas, and it's frustrating when you goes back to the well and does this. But Mandalorian is the same way. It's a show that's taking similar elements and using that as a vehicle to introduce new things, which I think is good, is striking that good balance. Whereas Visions is just all new, and it's not going to hit that larger audience. My parents are big Star Wars fans, but they're not going to care anything about Visions. They'll walk out of the room if I put on black. Like they're not going to stick around for that. And I wouldn't blame them, but it's just not going to be for everybody. But that doesn't mean it shouldn't exist.
Oh, absolutely. I'm not doubting that.
Yeah. I mean, I think George Lucas said it best himself, where he said that if he was going to continue doing Star Wars stories, he would have new ideas and move the story forward. And because Disney came in and picked people to do movies instead, we ended up having kind of a rehash of the same thing over again with the sequels. And I think that there's just the only reason we're in a situation we're in now where Star Wars is actually still relevant is because there was one tiny bit of George Lucas that was not removed from Lucasfilm when he left, and that's Dave Filoni. Like, I think Dave Filoni was able to keep the George Lucas idea flame burning despite a lot of adversity. Because what is so unfortunate is that Disney came up with Disney Plus several years after, it could have. Like if Disney had come up with the idea of we're going to compete with Netflix back when Netflix was just starting to get really, really popular with its original series, then they could have maybe seen a way to make money off of continuing Clone Wars on Disney Plus immediately. But instead it was, all right, we will acquiesce and, put whatever was in the middle of production out, on Netflix, make a deal with Netflix, put the Lost Missions on Netflix. And then it wasn't until a lot of fan clamoring and not until Disney Plus became a thing many years later that the agreement was made. Okay, let's go back and do a final season of this show. And that's really unfortunate because that I think if we had the alternative history where just Dave Filoni continued the Clone Wars and then that was the face of Disney and then that turned into live action shows that were based on Clone Wars characters, which turned into movies that were based on those live action characters, I think that we wouldn't be having any of these discussions. I think it would just be very natural, very fluid in a similar way to how the original trilogy was fluid. And from our perspective, the prequel trilogy was fluid for our generation. But instead, you ended up in a situation where Disney Plus didn't exist. Disney didn't have any place to put the Clone Wars. Thematically, it didn't fit into anywhere in the Disney universe. And so they had to stop it. But the saving grace, the thing that saved everybody was when Disney decided, well, we do need something on Disney Channel, Disney XD. The go-to person to do that was Dave Filoni. The go-to person to do Star Wars Rebels was Dave Filoni. And despite the fact that Rebels certainly thematically wasn't quite what the Clone Wars was, he was able to continue those storylines, continue those characters, keep that fan base that he had for fans of the Clone Wars. And then that was able to be popular enough for them to, again, go to him with their first live action show and part as well with The Mandalorian. And so Dave Filoni's off in this. Like, that's literally why the Filoni-verse is like its own thing and the Mandoverse is its own thing, because it's like this little thing that's going on the side. This George Lucas spark of actually innovating and doing something new and moving things forward instead of going back and rehashing the same things over and over again. That is the foundation for the future of Star Wars. The sequels aren't, because it's based on the foundation of not being innovated. Now, there was innovation that happened. Rian Johnson came in and definitely added some interesting new things to that. And there were pieces of interesting things from Abrams. But I think foundationally, there's a big difference between the things Filoni was involved in, which I think are a continuation of innovating in the way that George did, and kind of mixing innovation with, we're going to thematically repeat ourselves to just capture that audience to guarantee success instead of taking a risk, like George was always taking a risk with every new thing that he was doing. So now I think we're actually seeing everything rectify itself. I think it's not necessarily just the Mando and Grogu movie that has the chance to do it, because that is the future of Star Wars. Like, we're discounting the fact.
And Starfighter. Don't forget Starfighter.
Yeah, well, that's different. The thing is, we're discounting the fact that there is not a break in the continuation of making new Star Wars fans. There's not a whole generation that doesn't have Star Wars. Like, you have young Gen Z and older Gen Alpha people who grew up on The Mandalorian and Ahsoka and going back and watching those characters in Clone Wars and Star Wars Rebels and the Siege of Mandalore.
I'm just gonna throw in here real quick.
Yeah,
Rebels, for whatever faults we may find in it, I think might be the most successful At least we have the most evidence of it being the most successful vehicle for creating a happy new Star Wars fan base.
Yes.
Because
Yes,
the
that's what I'm saying,
fans who came in with Rebels got that like full dose of Filoni.
Yeah.
And what that show created was a complete story from season 1 to season 4 that was told in a way that was satisfying. And as a result, as you've said, a lot of those characters have since been elevated up into, and I'm sorry, Joel, real Star Wars, quote unquote.
I mean, but you're right. I mean, like, I know Rebels fans who like love Rebels so much. Like, they even go back to Clone Wars. Like, I don't even like they don't like I know someone who like Clone Wars. Some don't like Clone Wars. They're like, I don't like this Clone Wars. The animation doesn't look good, and I don't like the storytelling. But like, Rebels is the Star Wars for them. It's like, oh my god, the Ghost Crew, Ezra Bridger's Thrawn, like that is the truest of Star Wars. And then things like Resistance and Bad Batch, you know, here and there. There's a strong Resistance niche, which I'm a part of because I love Resistance to like a hardcore. I'm a hardcore Resistance guy. I think it's one of the best shows ever. And then Bad Batch, of course, that's another one where it's like not as big as Rebels, probably because of the lack of Force weirdness, but you know, it's got a decent fan base. And also to add to your point, Chris, something I think you brilliantly brought up, and I would even go further than this. There really isn't been a break. If you're a Clone Wars fan, you really haven't had a break from Star Wars since 2008, right? Like maybe the closest you've had was 05 to 08. Even then, it's like if you're not playing or reading books or playing games, but it's like Clone Wars, then Rebels, the sequels, the Rogue One, Solo, all the Mandoverse stuff, the non-Mandoverse stuff. You know, people.
I mean, look at it this way. Clone Wars goes 2008 to 2013.
Yeah.
Rebels goes 2014 to 2018. Mando goes 2019 to present.
And that's just the series. Not
in there. Yeah, and in there, you also have Clone Wars season 7. You get Ahsoka. You get Book of Boba Fett. You get Bad Batch. All of these things. Bad Batch. Yeah. So like it has continued. There has not been a year where that story hasn't been carried forward in some way.
There hasn't been a year that we haven't gotten a Star Wars on screen. Period. That's kind of the point I was trying to get at. Where people like, I kind of. I mean, I get it because I get maybe the superiority of theater screening if you believe in that. But I kind of can't roll my eyes a little bit of like the first Star Wars on screen in 7 years. I mean, I get it from like the movie perspective, but like, guys, we've had live action Star Wars for 7 years. It's not like it's gone away. If anything, Star Wars really hasn't had a break. We haven't really gone away. It's not gone away. Maybe that's a quick question of like maybe it should like take a true break. But, you know, I don't want to get into that too much. But it's still going, and it seems like it's going to keep going. I mean, we don't know what that third movie is. I'm sure we'll find out, hopefully. But
what I think they should do is, and I always assumed that this was going to happen. I just didn't know how it would happen or how long it would be until it happened. But, like, they have to figure out a way to more strongly connect the Mandoverse into the sequelverse. Like, they have to figure out a way to bridge that more. There have been these tiny references here and there to things, but like they haven't really created a very strong through line, mainly because of the difference in time. They just are so far before the Force Awakens still with the Mandalorian and Grogu. But like, I think that's the way to connect it, because I don't know. To me, it seems strange to try to then start reinvesting in the sequel characters and, you know, into the characters of Rey and Ben Solo again, when you already have this huge successful thing going on with Ahsoka and the Mandalorian and Thrawn. Like, it's almost like you're splitting your energy. Like, I feel like that needs to become one thing somehow. They somehow have to figure out a way to get the Mandoverse story to kind of go into the sequel story and have some carryover characters. Now, the reason why I think this is entirely possible is because they were able to do this with the prequels and the original trilogy very successfully with the live action Mandoverse, because the live action Mandoverse successfully was able to take characters that, are from an era that's much further back, with characters like Ahsoka, and Bo-Katan and Thrawn, who had originally showed up actually in Rebels, in the new canon. And they were able to then connect them with characters like Luke Skywalker in the Mandalorian. And so they were able to bring and that's why it's just so cool that Ahsoka and especially the Mandalorian, it gives you something for if you grew up with the prequels and the Clone Wars, or if you grew up with the sequels, or if you grew up with Star Wars Rebels, or not the sequels, but the original trilogy, or you grew up with Star Wars Rebels, whatever era of Star Wars you were in, it gives you something. The only thing that it's not giving is the people who grew up with the sequels, and that needs to be fixed. That needs to be brought in, because it's brought everything else in. I think once they can do that, and they can figure out a way to make fans of the Mandoverse care about Rey and Ben Solo, or make fans of Rey and Ben Solo care about the Mandoverse, and then you have the future of Star Wars, and it's completely locked in. But until then, it's still going to be weird. It's still going to be dicey.
I am looking, because this is kind of my perspective of things, of the Mandoverse. The Mandalorian Grogu is the start of the next epoch of Star Wars fandom and history and stuff like that. Because to me, Andor and season 2 and everything before, it's the weird streaming era where everything's a little bit chaotic. But to me, Mandalorian Grogu, Starfighter, and whatever that third film is, and Ahsoka, if we place that in there, I'm kind of looking at those, and I'm looking to see. And this might take a while. It might be something we might have to wait on, unfortunately. I'm going to see if there is a meta through line that we start to develop more and more. I posted a rumor. I hate talking about rumors, but I heard a rumor that apparently Dave Filoni is heavily involved in the writing of the NGO film. Whether or not that means Ahsoka and Grogu are going to show up, I don't know. I don't know what that means, but I do wonder if because he's the CCO, no, Chief Creative Officer, if he's kind of James Gunning this, where it's going to be starting with Mandalorian Grogu is the true reset, maybe not plot-wise, but of the franchise. Mandalorian Grogu, Ahsoka, Starfighter, whatever that third film is, Dawn of the Jedi somewhere, some other stuff, 10, 11, 12. If we will start to see what you're talking about, the merging of this larger meta narrative where we're seeing the connection. Maybe not necessarily Thrawn sees the vision of Rey in the Heir of the Empire movie. What the heck is that? Fire on it, or something like that. But starting to see this bigger plot, these connections kind of come through. Where I do feel that was happening with the first round of movies. Especially I think if Solo had come out after Force Awakens, I could see okay, Han dies. Here's his origin. The dice are kind of what connect all three of those things. Maybe they could have done more with Kira with Rey's mom the whole time, or something like that. Or I don't know. But there was definitely a thematic origin with that, and I do think up to, and then Last Skywalker kind of dipped, but because that movie had so many problems. But I do think we need to look at Mando, Ahsoka, and then Starfighter, and then maybe whatever the third film is really closely, and see if there is that meta narrative, because I think there will be. I really do.
I think where the opportunity is for that is with the sequels, they need to move on from the Palpatine Snoke thing. I think it was a major issue that the main obstacle you have to overcome is initially somebody who just looks like a clone of Palpatine, and then, oh wait, no, it is someone who's being controlled by Palpatine, and then, oh wait, that doesn't make it any better. That's even worse. And then it's overcome, and then you have nothing for the characters to do after that. The main plot thing is solved. The Rise of Skywalker is meant to be a saga-ending movie. It's designed to be episode 9 of 9. That's it. And that's why we've had so much difficulty finally getting a movie with Rey in it so many years later, and how we're still having difficulty convincing people to make a movie with Ben Solo in it, because it's just they wrapped up the characters too tightly. And I think the way that you unravel that is you have to create an interesting story element that is overarching over and behind the Palpatine Snoke First Order stuff that all just seemed like a weird echo of things that we had seen before and wasn't completely satisfying at all because it just wasn't new or interesting enough. And I think you do that with what's going on with the Mortis-like stuff in the Ahsoka series. I think that's where you go. That's where you do it. That's where you do it. Because if you can make a Mortis-esque, dark versus light, good versus evil, existential, multi-universal, or I guess multi-galactic universal battle thing going on that is even behind the story with Thrawn and the big war that's being set up between Thrawn and the Resistance.
New Republic.
New Republic. There we go.
Yeah.
Then you can also make that similarly a touch point in New Jedi Order stuff too, and then that connects everything together. Like you can do it. I think the fact that the Rebels introduced the World Between Worlds and the Clone Wars introduced Mortis gives you two very strong tools to connect Star Wars stories and characters together that normally wouldn't be connected, because you can kind of transcend the linear and spatial reality a little bit with that. And so I think I'm hoping that's where they're going. I'm hoping like you said, Joel, that there is a through line that's developing. I'm hoping that the fact that Dave Filoni keeps taking more and more responsibility as a creative lead for Lucasfilm, I hope that means that he's able to actually interject something like that. Because, one of the amazing things about, the MCU is the MCU always is able to keep a strong through line, and you kind of know the significance of every single MCU movie and TV show based on how it connects to the overall through line. And I feel like Star Wars is missing that right now, but is very close to redeveloping it.
I'll say this is my last point. This is also why this is my sneaking suspicion. Like, everyone always says James Mangold's film is so far out. Like, why are we doing it? Outside the fact that Dawn of the Jedi, kind of important to Star Wars. But there's kind of like my secret hope, like, Dawn of the Jedi is like a super secret prequel to 10, 11, 12, if that's what we're doing. Like, that's going to set up like the ancient evil or the ancient good, and then Rey's going to find the first Jedi's journal or something. And
hell yeah.
MacGuffin.
Hell yeah. Bring it. I'm here for it. But with that, we'll begin to wrap things up.
Hang on a second. Because I promised Joel something.
Oh, that's right.
And
I want to stop the music.
There's a question. There's a question in Ask SWU that's specifically for Joel.
Okay.
Because Joel, unbeknownst to maybe most of you, Joel is the official Kingdom Hearts correspondent for the Star Wars Underworld. And there was a question that came in, and I'll read it off really quick, and you can give your thoughts on this, Joel. And I have a few thoughts of my own. But this is from Gilster10, who says, the announcement teaser for Kingdom Hearts 4, released in 2022, featured footage of a forest and waterfall that closely resembled the forest moon of Endor as depicted in Star Wars Battlefront 2 2017. Notably, the teaser also included what appeared to be an ATST foot. Given the live action worlds like Pirates of the Caribbean and Tron were introduced in Kingdom Hearts 3, and Pixar worlds were added in Kingdom Hearts 3, Kingdom Hearts 2 and Kingdom Hearts 3, incorporating Star Wars and Marvel worlds seems like a natural and exciting next step for the series. My question is this: which Skywalker Saga film would make the perfect Kingdom Hearts level, assuming it's not Return of the Jedi? I think A New Hope would be the best choice. I feel like a self-contained adventure, whereas the other films lack the scale. The Phantom Menace, Attack of the Clones are too dark or violent. Revenge of the Sith, The Rise of Skywalker, or end on a cliffhanger. The Force Awakens or The Last Jedi. A New Hope stands out as a complete story with the iconic moments and settings that would translate beautifully into the Kingdom Hearts universe. So, Kingdom Hearts Star Wars, Joel, what's thoughts, please?
Yes. Okay. I do agree. I think A New Hope would be a good level, a good world. You drive on the gummy ship, and then you get sucked into the Death Star. Sora, Donald, and Goofy are there. You meet Han, you meet Leia, you meet Luke. You do the Obi-Wan sacrifice thing. That would be a great level. But I still think Return of the Jedi is the best level because you need Darth Vader boss battle, the Emperor boss battle. I can even imagine it now where, you're on Endor, you meet up with the rebels, and then on the second Death Star, Palpatine plotting, and then Maleficent and Pete show up, and then Maleficent's like, I'm going to give you the power of the Heartless to control them. And then, I can imagine, meeting up with Luke and going up to the Death Star with them. Goofy finds, they all find out Vader's Luke's father, and Goofy's like, gosh, Darth Vader's your father? Look. And then, you beat the Emperor, and then, the Emperor's like, young Skywalker, I've been expecting you, as well as you, Sora, Donald, and Goofy. And then, you have the big battle with Vader, and then the Emperor's summoning Heartless, and then you defeat the Emperor with your Keyblade lightsaber, and then you're on the fourth moon of Endor partying, and then, Sora, Donald, and Goofy waved goodbye to Luke, like, hey, you need help again, let us know, and be a great level. Love it.
Yeah,
it's Kingdom Hearts for you.
Yeah, Jeff caught me up on the trailer controversy about the fact that there might be Endor in it. And I'm just like, yes, I actually do. I think that's Endor. And plus, why hasn't Kingdom Hearts been added to Star? Like, why isn't there Star Wars level on this already? Like, this is an easy choice here.
Mark Hamill's already been in the games, so and Christopher Lee as Ansem the Wise.
Wow, I didn't know that.
Yeah,
amazing.
Kingdom Hearts. Imagine the Silmarillion and Star Wars mythology, but with Sora, Mickey, Donald, and Goofy. Basically the game. The greatest game since 2002.
What happened in 2002?
That's when Kingdom Hearts came out. Kingdom Hearts 1. By Square Enix.
Okay.
Yeah, this saga has been going on since 2002, I think, or 2000 maybe.
Got it.
I don't know if I've ever been more lost on this podcast.
Kingdom Hearts...
I don't know what just happened.
There's a reason Joel is here to talk about it and not us. Okay.
All right.
This is how it's going to be. This is the conditions that we have agreed to. If there is a Kingdom Hearts trailer and there's Star Wars in the trailer, the next podcast will be all about that, and Joel will be here to host.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
I'll take that week off.
Yes.
No, I gotta explain to you what Kingdom Hearts is all about and the great mythology behind it.
Joel explains Kingdom Hearts.
You would love it. It's got light and darkness and the balance and either inner peace and sometimes Mickey, Donald,
do you want
Goofy
some
there.
red string, Joel, and some push pin?
Yeah, you kind of need that. It's got a plot like that. And there's even an Emperor guy who's voiced by Leonard Nimoy.
What?
Yeah, Leonard
Nimoy.
Yeah, he was the voice of the main bad guy before he died.
I can't believe that Lego set's $400. You can't even put the minifigures into the Enterprise. It's just a model.
It's just
of the
a
Enterprise.
disc.
It's a mini model. Obviously, for it to balance, it has to be tight. Otherwise, it would fall over on that stand because the stand is on the other part. $400.
Hannah, if you're a gamer, if you're listening, stream Kingdom Hearts for me. Hannah, if you're listening, you decide to live stream.
Fittingly,
all right, so
we
that's
have
gonna
to
do it for this week.
We have to end this episode just like Star Wars Visions Volume 3 ended. We have to end it the same way. That is the rule. We have to be surreal.
Jazz.
Their light flashing
why are we not? Why are we
before our
playing
eyes.
rock? Is there a jazz? Like, is there actually a jazz? Now I want to know.
Yeah.
What else we got here? These are the options. We got this.
Wait, more?
What about this?
More.
Oh God, what's gonna happen?
Okay, there we go. Night driving.
Something is playing. I don't know what this.
Oh, I might have accidentally clicked that. I'm going to let's do lo-fi.
That's Minecraft music.
I'd rather lo-fi. There we go. This is a perfect surreal ending to the podcast that just people are gonna.
I just want to listen to something called "Feeding the Ducks."
Okay, let's do that. Let's do it. Yeah, there we go. That's it. That hits. Let's go.
Oh my God.
Okay.
We're just playing with, for anybody who's wondering, we're
hold
just playing with the automatic, the default StreamYard music choices here.
So thank you for listening to the Star Wars Underworld podcast. We'll be back again with another episode next week.
But
until then, Dominic, thank you for hosting tonight.
Was it a great show? No, it was. It was indeed. It's been a great show. It's been a lot of fun breaking down these episodes of Star Wars Visions, discussing the future of Star Wars, and learning something about Kingdom Hearts. Fun times, and looking forward to being back next week. And who knows what we'll be talking about then.
In the meantime, you can follow Dominic on social media at DominicJs25.
It's only one J.
It's only one J.
It's only one J.
Ben, thank you for
that's
for hosting as well, Ben.
That's one J. So there's a joke in there somewhere. Yes. Visions, we're done finally. No, I'm actually very sad to be done with Visions. But I think there's a lot more to talk about. I'm glad we split it up over 2 weeks because, for one, my schedule wouldn't allow it, and number two, there was a lot to discuss. I think we could do a whole episode just on Black, if we're being honest, and talk about how we are maybe emotionally scarred by that thing that happened. But yes, this was fun, and love Visions, and I hope maybe in a year or so we'll be back here talking more Visions. Things, and Hannah will also not be here for that episode because she's avoiding it. We know what you did, Hannah. But yeah, it's been fun. Good. See you next week, I guess.
At Ben Hart with no E. Joel, thank you for hosting. Tell everybody about what's happening on the next episode of Eye On Canon and what your next exciting Blue Sky post will be about.
Yes, my next exciting Blue Sky post will probably have to be about Kingdom Hearts then. Got a lot to teach you guys. I'm gonna do this voice. No, I'm not gonna do this voice. Next episode of Eye On Canon, we are reviewing the Last Order, about the Finn and Janna book that takes place one day after Rise of Skywalker and deals with their past as stormtroopers. A good sign for all that sequel trilogy stuff is slowly but surely returning. I saw in the comments that somebody really wanted us to talk about Legacy Vader. I know that I'm probably the only one here reading it, so but if you like sequel stuff, go read Legacy Vader. It is amazing. It is the story after Last Jedi you want from the comics about Kylo Ren. I talked about that on Track Stream with Matthew and other Chris, Star Raptor. And of course, you can find me at JID23234 on Blue Sky, JID23234 on Blue Sky, and the Star Wars Underworld Discord, where we're having game nights next week.
Amazing.
This Friday.
Check out the Raeside, Eye On Canon, Tales from Beyond the Galaxy, Tractor Beam, and more on the Star Wars Underworld Network. Make sure you follow the link in the description to that Discord if you're not there already. On your way out, don't forget to leave a review if you listened to us on a podcast catcher, and subscribe if you watched us on YouTube, and you can support us by becoming a channel member. And of course, follow us on social media. Just search for the SWU and you'll find us on all the prominent social media, even the dark side ones. We still maintain a presence to be the sole beacon of light and hope in those dark
Follow
places.
us on Truth Social.
That's right.
Yes.
We are on Truth Social. We are on Parler. We are on
Instagram. We'll be truthing all the things you could ever want to know about Star Wars Visions.
Lies and slander.
Oh my goodness. All right, we'll be back.
Which would be appropriate for Truth Social.
Yes. We'll be back. But until then, for Dominic and Joel and Ben, my name is Chris, and may the Force be with you.
It's a wrap.